She said my name like it was something she shouldn't remember. Slow, deliberate, as if the sound of it lingered longer than she meant it to. "Stay behind for a minute," she said. The others filed out, shuffling papers and backpacks. Their noise faded down the hallway until the room was left with only the hum of the old radiator and the faint smell of dry erase markers. I didn't move. She was standing by the desk, straight-backed, hand resting on a stack of essays. Her blouse sleeves were rolled to her elbows, the kind of detail that shouldn't mean anything but did. She looked at me once, quick, then back at the papers as though she was trying to remember why she'd asked me to stay at all. "You've been distracted lately," she said finally, not quite looking at me. Her tone wasn't cold, more like she was testing the distance between us. I nodded, though I didn't know what she wanted me to say. When she looked up again, her eyes didn't match her words. They were softer, uncertain, like she'd walked too close to something she wasn't supposed to touch. "You're capable of more," she added, quieter this time. The clock on the wall ticked louder than it should have. I heard her shift her weight. The sound of her heels scuffing against the floor filled the space where an answer should have been. "I know," I said. It wasn't about the assignment anymore. It hadn't been for weeks. I watched her reach for a pen, but her fingers hesitated on it. She seemed aware of her own movements, like she could feel me watching. Her hand brushed a loose strand of hair from her face, and I swear, the air between us changed, thinner, warmer, charged with something I couldn't name. "You should take this more seriously," she murmured, eyes still down. "I am," I said, but it came out softer than I meant. That made her look up, the kind of look that makes time drag its feet. There was a faint crease at the corner of her mouth, not quite a smile, maybe something she wanted to hide. The light from the window cut across her face, sharp and forgiving all at once. For a second, I thought she might say something she shouldn't. Instead, she sighed. "You're young," she said, as if it explained everything. I know. The words hung there, neither of us sure what they meant anymore. She leaned back against the desk, arms crossed. I noticed her hand gripping her sleeve like she was holding herself together. My pulse matched the sound of the clock. "This isn't," she started, then stopped. "Isn't what?" Her silence answered for her. Outside, someone's laughter echoed down the hallway, too loud, too ordinary. It made the room feel smaller, like whatever was happening here didn't belong in daylight. Her gaze dropped to the floor, then returned to me, slower this time. "You should go," she said. I didn't move. Neither did she. Something in her expression shifted. Not guilt, not regret, just something close to recognition. Like she'd finally seen what I couldn't say out loud. Then came a knock. Sharp, quick. A voice on the other side. Another student, maybe. She turned toward the door, but not before her fingers brushed the edge of my hand. So light it could have been an accident. But it wasn't. And when she finally opened the door, her voice sounded perfectly steady. Too steady. "Come in," she said. I started staying after class more often. Not because she asked, she didn't, but because it had become something I couldn't stop doing. Sometimes I'd offer to help her carry papers to her office, or just linger while she erased the board, pretending to be in no rush. She never told me to leave, but she never invited me to stay, either. It was always somewhere in between. Her office was smaller than I expected. Books stacked sideways, a plant she probably forgot to water, the faint smell of coffee gone cold. The blinds were half open, letting in slices of afternoon light that cut across her desk, across her hands when she worked. I learned things about her in small pieces. She'd been divorced for 3 years. Used to live by the coast, but said the ocean felt too wide now. She wore a ring once. I noticed the faint pale line it left behind. She rarely talked about herself, but sometimes her voice softened when she forgot to guard it. And me? I told her almost nothing. She didn't ask, and I was afraid if she did, I'd say too much. The unspoken thing between us grew heavier, but not unbearable. More like gravity, always there, pulling, quiet and steady. One afternoon, she was standing close enough that I could smell her perfume. Faint, warm, something with cedar in it. She leaned over my shoulder to look at my essay draft, her breath brushing the side of my neck as she read. "You write differently than you speak," she said softly. "How so?" You're braver on paper. I turned slightly. Too far. She didn't move. The edge of her sleeve brushed my arm. A few inches closer, and it would have been unmistakable. She straightened, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. A nervous motion I'd never seen from her before. I shouldn't say that, she muttered. Why not? Her eyes met mine for a heartbeat too long. Then she smiled, not warmly, but as a way to close the door she'd accidentally opened. Because I'm your professor, she said. The way she said it told me she'd repeated that line to herself before. I nodded, though I didn't believe it was the real reason. When she turned back to her desk, her hand brushed a folder, sending papers fluttering to the floor. I bent down at the same time she did, and for a moment, our hands touched barely. It wasn't the touch itself that froze me, but the fact that neither of us pulled away right away. Her fingers hesitated against mine, warm, deliberate. Then she drew her hand back, slower than she should have. We both stayed crouched there, pretending to gather papers, pretending not to notice. I'm sorry, she whispered. For what? She exhaled through her nose, the sound of someone trying to steady themselves. For forgetting where the lines are. I wanted to tell her she wasn't the only one forgetting, but the words stuck in my throat. She stood, smoothing her skirt, her composure rebuilt but thinner now, like glass that had been cracked and put back together. Let's not make things harder than they are, she said finally. I nodded again, but as I handed her the last paper, our fingers brushed once more, softer this time, intentional in its hesitation. Neither of us spoke after that. But when I left the office, I could still feel the warmth of her skin on my hand, and it didn't fade. It started raining just before class ended, the kind of cold, steady rain that makes everyone hurry for the door. I stayed behind again, pretending to organize my notes. She lingered, too, pacing between her desk and the window, waiting for the downpour to let up. When the room emptied, she looked at me like she was debating whether to say something or not. You'll get soaked walking home, she said finally. I don't mind. She hesitated, then sighed, that quiet, resigned sound she made when she'd already decided something before admitting it. Wait here, she said. She came back from her office holding an umbrella, a small one, barely enough for one person. You can borrow it, she said, holding it out. I should have taken it and left. But I didn't move. Her hand stayed outstretched between us, still holding the handle. While I reached for it, my fingers brushed hers, the same flicker of contact we'd been pretending not to notice for weeks. Neither of us let go right away. Outside, thunder cracked faintly. Inside, the air was too still. She took a slow breath. You're making this complicated, she said, but her voice wasn't sharp. More like she was blaming herself. I'm not trying to. I know. The words hung there, quiet, dangerous. She stepped past me to set the umbrella on the desk, closer than she needed to. The scent of her perfume was stronger this time. Wood, warmth, something that felt like memory. I should go, I said, but my voice didn't sound convincing. She looked up at me, searching for something. You keep saying that. I mean it. Do you? Her question hit harder than it should have. She wasn't teasing. She was asking if I understood what I was doing to her. I don't want to make things harder, I said. Her expression softened. You already have. The light flickered above us, the storm outside deepening. For a second, everything else, the room, the rain, the clock, faded out. She took one step closer. I didn't back away. Her eyes dropped to my mouth, then back up. She didn't move again, but her hand lifted, almost, then stopped midway, fingers trembling slightly before falling back to her side. The silence stretched thin. I could hear the rain hitting the windows, her uneven breathing, the way she tried to steady it. Then, a knock on the half-open door. We jumped apart. A student poked her head in. Professor? You left your bag in the office. Her voice was casual, unaware. My professor managed a polite smile. Thank you, Emily. I'll get in a minute. When the door shut again, neither of us moved. She exhaled slowly, brushing her hand through her hair, her composure returning in fragments. That was close, I said. Her gaze found mine again, this time tired, conflicted. You should really go now. I nodded, but neither of us did. The rain outside softened like even it had run out of nerve. We stood there a few feet apart, both trying to remember which version of ourselves we were supposed to be. Then she whispered, almost to herself, "You make it very hard to forget." That was the last thing she said before I turned to leave, and even then, she didn't look away. For 2 weeks, we barely spoke. She called on me less in class, kept her tone formal, clipped, not cruel, just careful. But every now and then, I'd catch her watching me the way someone watches a flame, wary but drawn. The distance should have made things easier. It didn't. One evening, I saw her outside campus. She was locking her car, rain starting up again, that same half-broken umbrella from before in her hand. I almost walked past, but she saw me. "Need a ride?" she asked like she didn't mean to. I hesitated, then nodded. The drive was quiet, the kind of silence that fills up with everything you're trying not to say. Streetlights flashed across her face in slow rhythm. Gold, shadow, gold again. At a red light, she said softly, "You shouldn't be here." "I'm not," I said. "I'm just with you." Her hand tightened on the steering wheel. That's the problem. We didn't talk again until she parked near my building. I thanked her, reached for the door, stopped. "Are you okay?" I asked. She laughed once, small, tired. "You asked that like you don't already know the answer." When she turned to me, something gave way in her eyes. All the walls she kept up cracking at once. "I tried," she said quietly. "I really did." Before I could reply, she leaned her forehead against the steering wheel, her shoulders shaking with a breath that wasn't quite steady. Instinct made me reach for her. My hand hovered before landing lightly on her arm. She didn't pull away. "I keep thinking if I just stay distant enough, it'll fade," she said. "But it doesn't. She stopped. The word never came. I brushed a strand of hair from her face, hesitant, barely a touch, but she turned toward the motion instead of away from it. Our faces were close now. Too close for teacher and student, too close for reason to still matter. "Tell me to go," I whispered. She didn't. The rain thickened outside, muffling the world, making the car feel smaller, sealed off from everything that could save us from ourselves. Her breathing changed, shallow, uneven. I could smell her perfume again, familiar now, almost cruel in how it pulled me closer. "This can't," she began, but her voice broke halfway through. "I know." "Then why?" I didn't let her finish. Not with words. For a moment, neither of us moved, like we were both waiting for permission that would never come. Her hand lifted, fingers grazing my collar, then hesitated there, trembling between restraint and surrender. A flash of lightning lit the inside of the car. The thunder followed, close and loud. Her lips parted just slightly, as if to speak, or something else. And then, from outside, a voice. Someone calling her name. She froze. The spell broke. Her hand fell away, and the distance returned like a slammed door. "Go," she whispered this time, almost pleading. I opened the door, the rain hitting my face like a warning, and stepped out. When I looked back, she was still there, hands gripping the wheel, eyes closed like she was holding her breath until I disappeared. I avoided her for days. She avoided me longer. Then the email came. "See me after class. M." When I walked in, she was already there, papers scattered, the blinds half drawn. She looked different, not colder, just determined, like someone rehearsing for confrontation. "You met with the dean?" she said, straightening a pile that didn't need straightening. My heart lurched. "No, why would I?" Her jaw tightened. "Because someone did. Someone mentioned we've been spending time." The word we landed heavy, like she regretted giving it shape. I shook my head. "I haven't said anything." She studied me for a long moment, searching for cracks. "Then who did?" I had no answer. Just the sound of the clock again, relentless, familiar. She exhaled, sinking into her chair. The posture was still composed, but her hands gave her away. Fingers pressed too hard together, knuckles pale. "I told them you were helping me with research," she said finally. "That it's academic, professional. That's not a lie," I said. It is if they look closely enough. The words carried something more than fear, shame, maybe, or self-defense disguised as practicality. She looked up again, eyes sharp now. "Do you understand what happens if this gets misread? I lose everything." "I know." She stood abruptly, pushing the chair back, the scrape echoing. "You don't know. You still think this is a story where feelings fix things?" Her voice trembled. It was the first time I'd heard it break. I took a step closer. "You think I'd ever want to hurt you?" Her laugh was soft, bitter. "That's not the point." "Then what is?" She turned, and for the first time I saw her afraid. Not of being caught, but of how much she'd already let slip. "I wasn't supposed to need this," she said quietly. "Any of it. You." The room went still. For a heartbeat, she looked like she might take it back. Instead, she added, even quieter, "I've been lying to myself." I didn't move. Couldn't. Her eyes darted toward the door. Footsteps passed in the hall, fading. She exhaled shakily, the kind of breath that trembles through your whole body. When I spoke, my voice came out rough. "So what now?" She stepped closer, too close again, the old magnetic pull refusing to die. The faintest brush of her sleeve against my hand. "We stop before we can't," she said. But she didn't move away. The silence between us felt dangerous, the kind that decides what happens next. Finally she whispered, "Don't come to my office again." I nodded. And yet, when I turned to leave, she reached out, fingers grazing my wrist for half a second, a reflex she couldn't stop. That touch said what neither of us dared to. This isn't over. It happened on the last day of the term. No email, no invitation, just coincidence, or fate wearing the shape of coincidence. I was walking past her office when I heard the sound of drawers opening, papers being boxed. She was leaving early. Everyone knew she'd asked for a semester off. I hovered in the doorway. "You're really going?" I said. She looked up, startled but not surprised. "I have to." The room was half empty, walls bare where her books used to be. Only her mug remained, a faint ring of coffee on the desk beside it. "You could have said goodbye," I added. She smiled a little. "Would that have made it easier?" "No," I said, "but real." The silence stretched, heavy but tender. She set the last folder into the box and sat on the edge of the desk, hands resting flat, as if to steady herself. "I kept thinking it would stop feeling like this," she said. "It never did." I took a slow step forward. "Feeling like what?" Her eyes met mine. Tired, honest, no deflection left. Like I'm about to make the wrong decision either way. We were only a few feet apart now. The window was open just enough to let the rain smell drift in. Wet asphalt, spring dust, something electric in the air. She exhaled. "If I stay, I lose everything I built. And if you go," she hesitated, voice low, "then I lose what I didn't mean to find." I closed the distance one small step at a time. Her breath caught. She didn't retreat. My hand hovered near hers, but didn't touch. The air between us was charged, waiting. "You once told me I was braver on paper," I said. "This isn't paper." She looked at me as though memorizing the moment. "Then say it anyway." "I love you," I whispered. The words seemed to land everywhere. On her skin, in the quiet, in the years she'd spent guarding herself. She closed her eyes, shaking her head once, not in denial but in recognition. When she opened them again, they were shining. "I wanted you to be wrong about that," she said. "But you aren't." Our foreheads nearly touched. The air felt suspended. She reached up, fingers tracing the space beside my jaw, stopping just before contact. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Then she let hers out and stepped back. "Someday you'll see this as something that changed you," she said softly. "Not something you lost." I wanted to argue, to close the gap again, but her tone left no room. It wasn't rejection, it was mercy. She lifted the box, walked past me, and paused at the door. "Thank you for letting me remember what it feels like to be seen." When she was gone, the room stayed warm with her absence. Proof that sometimes love doesn't end. It just chooses not to begin. The campus felt different when the semester ended. Quieter, lighter, or maybe I was just noticing how empty it was without her there. For weeks I caught myself glancing at her office door, half expecting it to open again. It never did. Then one evening, as the sun slipped behind the library roof, I saw her standing near the steps. She looked the same, simple coat, hair tucked back, but there was something easier in the way she carried herself. "I thought you left," I said. "I tried," she answered, smiling faintly, "but I forgot to return a few things." We both knew she wasn't talking about books. The pause between us wasn't sharp anymore. It was gentle, like a song fading out instead of cutting off. She walked closer. "How have you been?" "Still writing," I said. "Still thinking about that last day." Her eyes softened. "Me too." The evening air was cool, but the space between us felt warm. I could smell rain on her coat, the kind that lingers after storm. "I kept wondering," she said quietly, "if what we had was a mistake." And she looked at me for a long moment. "It wasn't. It just couldn't last the way it was." I nodded. "Doesn't mean it wasn't real." She reached for my hand. Not sudden, not nervous, just honest. Her fingers slipped into mine, fitting like something familiar. We stood like that, the crowd thinning around us, the sky deepening into the blue of early night. "You've grown," she said softly. "I can see it. Maybe you taught me more than you meant to." She laughed under her breath, shaking her head. "You always find a way to make everything sound like a line from a book. Maybe because you're still my favorite story." That made her go still. Then she leaned in, pressing her forehead lightly against mine. No words, no rush, just the quiet pulse of two people who had stopped fighting what they felt, even if they still didn't know where it led. After a moment, she drew back, eyes glistening but calm. "Whatever comes next," she said, "don't let it make you small. Promise me that." "I promise." We didn't kiss. We didn't need to. The closeness said enough. The warmth of her hand, the faint tremor of her breath, the way she looked at me like she was saying goodbye and thank you at once. When she finally stepped away, she turned once more, smiled, and whispered, "Take care, brave one." And then she was gone, walking into the fading light, leaving the air between us full but peaceful. I stood there a long while, hands still warm from hers, knowing that some stories end not with loss, but with understanding. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?